everybody gets 5 minutes and nobody gets more than 5 minutes. And the way that we measure that is that I'm over there and I have my stopwatch on my phone. I'm Pat, by the way. Hi, I'm going to be your host for the evening. I'm over there, I have my stopwatch on my phone. And if you get up to 4 minutes 45, then I have the ultra kitsch heart-shaped Princess Diana bell. Let's Talk About Gay Sex and Drugs was set up as a way of people just coming together to talk about these issues in the community. I was speaking to David Stewart, who's a well-known expert in chemsex. We're definitely not anti-drugs. I'm not anti-drugs, David's not anti-drugs, but sometimes it's definitely causing people harm.
Community is what Let's Talk About Gay Sex and Drugs means to me. This is community at its most vibrant. What community meant to me wasn't so nice. My community was a place where I felt like I didn't belong. It was a place where I felt like I needed to take drugs to fit in. It was a place where I got rejected. It was a place where I wasn't fit enough. I didn't have the right abs. It was a place where if I didn't have the right friends, I didn't quite fit in, and not fitting into my community was hell.
Not only I was able to talk about my experiences of drugs, sex issues, intimacy, problems with gay community, but it was also a place for meeting new people. It was a place for sharing experiences. It was a place for seeing another perspective. It provided that safe space where people were able to come together, talk about the most insane, difficult issues without any fear of judgment or persecution or any pressure of having to appeal to what normal should be.
All you think about is a nice big juicy car with a set of swing balls slapping your face left and right. Thank you very much. And that puts you already as a disadvantage, so you enter adolescence already feeling a little bit shitty because you're just a little bit different. You just couldn't be normal, could you? So you start growing up and you start developing all these sorts of mannerisms just to hide the fact that you're just a little queer boy living neighborhood.
I was just amazed, really, at the kind of that it kind of existed, actually. That there was this night of people that were really talking about it, because that was the big problem for me. That I think not talking about it or keeping it a thing that was repressed was what made it have the power that it did over me. And that was what made me return to it every weekend and seem like something that was controlling my life. Whereas as soon as you start talking about these things, the power lessens.
This kind of sense of worth overpowers us today. That we must be a worthy gay. We must be masculine as possible with as many abs as possible, because God forbid we turn into like a fat femme, because that would be the worst thing ever, which is just ridiculous. And there's also a sense, because of this divide between good and bad. Like there's a good gay and a bad gay. And the good gays all live as much like our straight counterparts as possible. Just perhaps a little bit more fabulous.
By coming to the event, I learned that, how I found destructive coping mechanism between using drugs and using sex to feel better about myself, for my race not to be relevant, for my build and my look not to be relevant.
Kind of a bit of a beacon, I think, because of my age, for like a shoulder to cry on or a listening ear or something. And whenever I struggle with issues, either of my own or from other people, I'm like, you need to come to this night. You just need to hear. You need to hear the words.
I started getting crushes on people. I went to my mum was trying to get me into a different school, church school, and I used to go and sing in the choir. And the guy who played the piano had massive crushes on him. I wanted to kill myself. I cried myself to sleep every night thinking about him. And then there was the next person, the next person, the next person. I got into that school and developed a crush on my friend called James. And one day in my bedroom, I locked the door and said, "I'm gay and I love you." and he just looked at me and said, "I'm not gay." And I said, "Yes, you are. You are too." I think the thing that inspired me the most about the night was the fact that people were just talking honestly and openly. I think addiction and problematic drug use comes from shame, and shame is about playing small, keeping yourself hidden, not ever telling people who you are or what you are or how you feel. And I think the opposite of shame is what's needed to kind of get over those problems. And so talking about things in the open and communicating things and standing in your truth and speaking to other people who may be feeling the same way is so hugely important.
The first time I came to the event was an enjoyable experience. It was a particularly inclusive environment, which I don't usually like because I'm a bully. But on this particular occasion, I found it quite charming. It's always interesting to hear other people's opinions and, more importantly, to give other people mine.
I'd close my eyes really to the whole situation of the drugs and things, you know, and the plight. And, you know, hearing people talk about it really changed my mind. And, you know, it's a brilliant way of raising awareness and hopefully prevention in the future.
The man's facial expressions clearly indicated that something was happening under the bubbles. Something that was making the older gentleman uncomfortable, so uncomfortable, in fact, that he left the jacuzzi almost immediately. The younger gentleman kept ignoring me. To express my disapproval, I stampeded out of the jacuzzi. On my way to the dry sauna, I bumped into the third customer of the night, an exotic creature I would never have expected to find at this establishment. Long black hair and high heels, stockings, black shiny knickers, and a feathery bolero falling over the pale, flat chest, she batted her long eyelids seductively at me.
The event started, I wasn't sure whether it was for me or not, because the gay sex part, obviously, it affected me, but the drugs part didn't. But it was an opportunity for me to find out about what other people's experiences were. And I was not expecting a lot of the things I heard. You know, their experiences with drugs or with HIV or partners, life experiences with work, etc., homelessness, these kinds of things. It's really shocking to find out these things happen among young people in London now.
I guess the first time I came was as a performer, which was really nerve-wracking because I knew it was a spoken word mixed night and had heard about it but hadn't actually been. And the first night I was on, the guy who was just before me did this really like heart-wrenching account of like recovering from a meth addiction and being on welfare, and it was really like the whole room was sort of seized by it. And I came on and was like, so guys, here's some jokes, I guess. But it was really fun.
A lot of pictures on Facebook of me smoking, and my dad's a militant anti-smoker, so when he'd added me, he then called me and went, Shan, have you taken up smoking? And I was like, oh, no, I'll just have one every now and then when I'm drunk. And he was like, well, there's pictures here. I was like, Dad, I'm drunk all the time. I bring this up because he saw on Facebook today that I was interested in attending this event, Let's Talk About Gay Sex and Drugs. And he sort of went, Shan, you talk a lot about gay sex. And I went, yeah, there was a lot of wine at Andrew's wedding. I'm sorry, I got a bit carried away. But then he said, what are gay drugs?
I'm a counsellor. I work mainly with the LGBT community, and I guess, specialise in working with chemsex and men that kind of want to make a change and get out and move on. We can help people kind of learn about themselves, but I think it's really important to learn about community and to feel a part of something, and this night seemed to be the perfect place for that.
I often talk about it casually as let's talk, rather than let's talk about gay sex and drugs. And I think for me that's actually quite suitable. It's grown now into something where people can just come and share and say whatever they're feeling about this community, the things they love, the things they hate, the things that they find brilliant, the things they find challenging.
I managed to change. I think that's the most valuable thing that I've got out of this night.